Come along, rise and shine. Come along and rise and shine. Come on and shine. Come along and ride on a light walker, Johnny. Light walker, Johnny. Yeah. Come along and ride on a light walker, Johnny. Yeah.
Welcome to this edition of the Sunday Soul Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lisa Brewer, and today I have with us Dr. Stefan Zavalin. Now, guys, he's like a medical, but Stefan, we're going to call him affectionately Stefan, is going to talk to us about something that's very near and dear to my heart and my back. Okay, can we just say it that way? And he's going to talk to us about how we can have this kind of sedentary life, but not be so sedentary. A lot of us are working from home now, or we have our own businesses, and we find ourselves sitting in front of this computer or camera or whatever. So, Dr. Stefan, I'm going to let you take it away because I am definitely not an expert on this, but this is going to be amazing.
I'm excited. I am so excited to be here because I just love talking about this stuff. But the general point of everything that I'm trying to bring across and sort of give a little bit more of my background around this is I got my doctorate in physical therapy. I went into the clinic, and by the way, I love physical therapy. Physical therapy is fantastic, and it's so much fun to me because I like exercise, and I'm the oddball usually in those scenarios. I would help people. They would come in, they'd have their pain. I'd give them exercises, do hands-on things. They would go away. They're feeling great. A year later, back with the same issue.
Ooh.
And so I give them the exercises. I'd do the hands-on. I would send them away, and they would come back with the same issue.
Yeah.
And so I started to go, okay, what's the problem? The problem was really more so they're sitting the entire time, or they're in a posture or a position for hours and hours on end. So I started saying, okay, let's change the behaviors. Maybe let's break up your sitting a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, great. That worked maybe a little bit, but most of them said, yeah, but my boss and I have all these meetings and I just don't know how people are going to look at me and so excuse after excuse after excuse. So I finally understood I'm not going to be able to have that change one-on-one with people. That's not where this is going to be going to. And so inevitably I kind of got jettisoned out of the whole thing because a little over a year ago, I finally received my diagnosis of being legally blind. And then on top of that, I got COVID around that time. And it kind of told me, the universe spoke and said, it's time to move on to the next chapter, which was starting this business and effectively saying, we need to change the culture and how people are looking at desk work and how they're doing desk work, because most of the time when we say desk work, we're going, oh, we're sitting the entire time. Mm-hmm. And I'm really working on changing what the reality of that should be so that work can actually maybe be good for you. What a ridiculous notion to think about.
That's just crazy.
I know.
But I adore the name of your company, your business, Love to Move, as a woman of a certain age that still loves to move. Okay, can I just say I love to dance, I love to do all these things, but don't get the chance to do as much of it as I used to. But I love that, that just says everything. So why should we love to move during the day?
And it's a beautiful question, and the move part is where people get a little caught up. When I talk to people in society and I say, you should move more, they go, oh yeah, I should exercise. I should go to the gym. And I said, I never said exercise. I said, you should move more. Oh. Movement is big and complex. And there's so many things that are not exercise that are in movement. Yeah. So doing our chores, taking a walk just because you need to walk the dog or you need to get some fresh air. They're not necessarily exercise, but they are movement.
Yes.
And our bodies were meant to move. We have a beautiful complexity of joints and muscles, and they're wonderful at doing a lot of motions. And most exercises are kind of very rigid, structured. This is the thing. You don't get to express yourself the way that you were saying dancing. Dancing is awesome. Think about how complex it is. I would never know how to express to a person exercise in a dance. I would just be like, just dance, just do something, just because it's so complex and interesting.
Yeah.
And we really kind of put ourselves in a box of, oh, he means exercise.
Yeah.
And so when we expose ourselves back to that, back to those motions that we like, not that somebody told us, hey, you need to get on a treadmill at an incline and go at this speed. But when we go, hey, my body really likes this motion. I like rock climbing, or I really enjoy just being in nature and just twirling in a meadow. Whatever you like, when you finally find that thing, that movement that you like, you turn to actually loving it. And that's the goal. The goal is that you're not feeling forced into it, because this is what your body's meant to do. It's meant to move, so that you finally love to move, because it's just natural for you. And I can, if you'd like me to, go into the slew of bad things that happen to us as we sit for long, long periods of time.
Well, there is a slew, and I probably have experienced some of them. What the typical back pain is something, right? Oh my goodness, my lower back, or hip pain. If some of us, are a little fluffy, we may have some hip pain, right, as well. What? Can you talk a little bit about what actually happens? Because I get this like weird neck and shoulder pain that at some point some physician has said, do you sit at the computer all day? What else besides our back and our hips can end up being in pain as a result of, how is it bad for the rest of our body?
Sure. When we're talking about muscles and joints really just being static, which that's what we end up doing for a long period of time. And this is where I'm talking, if you're sitting at the computer 2-3 hours without getting up, sometimes when we really get into it and we're really working and we're not really noticing it, that's when you're going to have a lot more of those aches. But in general, I love talking about this in a timeline fashion.
Awesome.
So if you're sitting for 20, 30 minutes, about 30 minutes is when we're seeing there's some reduced blood flow to the brain. So you're not probably focusing quite as well, but still manageable. And actually our ability to break down and metabolize fat can drop drastically, up to 80%. Up to, it doesn't mean that that's how much it is, but that's a little bit of the idea of why we may need to get up every 20 to 30 minutes and move. A minute of movement gets that taken care of. You don't really need to think, oh no, I can no longer ever sit. No, just as long as you're having frequent breaks.
Yeah.
So if we go for an hour of sitting without getting up, this is where it's varying in data a little bit, but men tend to have their low backs start to get stiff at that point. The actual joints are stiffening up a good bit, and it's measurable. At 2 hours, everybody's backs are getting stiff. And usually somewhere in between that 1 to 2 hour mark is when we're starting to get pain in the neck, back, shoulders, knees.
Wow.
That's the marker. And at 2 hours, we actually have an increase in the amount of errors that we make, especially on creative tasks. So if we're trying to solve our business problems, or we're trying to make content or anything like that, at 2 hours is when you're having that big increase. And it's a little over 50% of how many more errors you end up making. And you may think, oh no, it's fine, I'll just sit, I'm just going to power through this. But getting up and moving for an extra 5 minutes can alleviate all of that, and you'll be more productive and more creative as you go. Now, most likely, maybe some people sit for 3 or 4 hours without taking any breaks, but usually you're seeing people sit for 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
What happens if we're sitting for throughout the day, many, many hours? That's the next question, right?
Yeah.
So 6 hours, we've got an increased risk of anxiety and depression. And the interesting part is the common denominator for depression as a factor is back pain. And sort of and back and forth. So a lot of times people, when they come in with back pain, may be suffering from depression. And so they interlock together. If you think about the posture that we can get into, is that slouched posture that is straining the back quite a bit. At 8 hours, we've got a doubled risk of cardiovascular disease. And that gets thrown out a lot, and people go, oh, okay, all right. The reason that's actually kind of scary is that even with everything going on in the last couple of years, cardiovascular disease has still been the #1 cause of death in the United States. So it's a big issue. However, here's the silver lining to all of that, because I don't want to bring you sad news and then not give you something. All of that reversible with exercise. So yay, that's wonderful.
Yes.
But here's the catch. we sit more than 8 hours. Unfortunately, we sit a good bit more than 8 hours. And so this is the study that is really kind of getting people to stand up a little bit more. 11 or more hours a day of sitting increases our risk of premature death by 40%.
Wow.
And that did not show a reduction with exercise.
Oh my goodness.
Americans, it really depends. There are some surveys that are saying you're sitting about 12 hours, 13. Some say up towards to 15 hours a day. So even if you're sitting 15 hours a day, going to the gym for an hour does not really cut down on your whole sitting time. Now, this is not to say that exercise doesn't help. Exercise is fantastic and it will help. But at this point, when you're sitting that much, it only helps to a certain degree. And we really need to look at reducing how much we're sitting. And that's for our longevity, for our health. Sure, it helps how productive we are. It helps how energetic and engaged, even in life, we are. But in the end, it's longevity and health and reducing sitting.
So, because I don't think that we take into account, you know, my first thing was like, how did I ever sit for 15 hours? But if you think about like an average commute is probably, I don't know, half hour to an hour?
Half hour, yeah.
Somewhere in there. So let's just say it's a half hour there, half hour back. So that's 1 hour. You're at work for at least 8 with minimal breaks in there, you know, minimal. You're sitting at lunch. At your break time, you're probably sitting. Then you come home, you'll make dinner, and then what do? We sit down and eat, we sit down and watch TV. And then we go to bed and do it all over again.
And I love actually that you stole my thunder in that entire thing, because this is exactly what I say. But the fact that you said it shows that, it doesn't take somebody who's living this and researching this and looking at this. You see it, you get it. It's the reality. I didn't make up a bunch of those numbers, nor has this person been paid by me to say any of those things, audience. But it's the truth. So you were saying out of the workday, average office workers sit 6.9 out of those 8 hours. So about 7. So I'll give you all some credit. Yes, we get up, but it's not as much as we may think.
Right.
We might be better for people that have more kind of labor intensive jobs. Of course, you're not sitting, but really for office workers, I mean, it's very much up there. And it's so easy to sit for 12, 13 hours. You just perfectly explained how that easily accrues throughout the day.
Do you think that increased? I just gut instinct feel that we post the last 2 years, or as the result of the last 2 years, we actually probably sit more.
Yes. With the idea of being remote, a lot of people's commute of at least walking out of the house, walking from the parking lot, has turned into roll out of bed and plop into a chair, wherever it may be, because the distances in our house are nowhere near the distances that we have to go outside. And I feel that even more and more as we're seeing things are getting delivered easier all the time. We don't really have to go outside of the house. And so we don't. As much as there have been some people that took advantage of it and have gotten into a great exercise routine, the majority, it's gone the other way.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think that definitely I became more sedentary. I can look at like my adult children that worked from, remotely. They became more sedentary. It was harder to physically force yourself to get up, because if you can't go to the gym, you can't do this, you can't do that. Well, even if you were in the habit, now all of a sudden that's been taken from you. So now you'd had to find other ways to do these things. And if you're like me and living in Wisconsin or right now at the timing of this recording down in Texas, there's snow, there's ice, there's all sorts of things that are going to kind of preclude you from, you're going to be less likely to put on all the layers to go out and take a walk, right? Even if it's not because you got to walk the dog, just to walk and to get some fresh air and to get yourself moving. Like you're just less likely to do it. I don't go to the grocery store nearly what I used to, because I've gotten used to getting stuff delivered or put in my trunk of my car. Like, So that walk around the grocery store for an hour doesn't happen anymore. Okay, so we've done a lot of doom and gloom. So, but we're solution based. So, what are some of the things that we can do that will just help us to move during the day, help us to not be sitting for so long?
So it all has to do, obviously, with habits and how you do them. So we'll talk a little about habits, but then the other next question is, we all know we should have good habits, but it's so hard to keep those good habits. So we'll talk about how do you support them? What are some ways that you can support them? You can help others support them. You can have your environment support them.
Yeah.
Because it's really easy to tell you, go move more. Okay, podcast over, done. No, there's a bit more to it. If it was that easy and it's so simple to implement, we wouldn't be talking about it at such length. So two things to do, two simple things to just even start, is one that is very short and easy, and one that is the long-term game, really.
Mm-hmm.
So the very short and easy, we talked about that whole timeline of sitting. Mm-hmm. If you can find a way to break up your tasks to where you're getting up every 20, 30 minutes, if you're usually sitting 2-3 hours without getting up, start at an hour, start at an hour and a half. You don't have to jump to the 30-minute mark. That's not going to be feasible, and you are more likely to fail. And baby steps, just get there. Progress is still progress.
Mm-hmm.
So the catch is, you can either set a timer, which will interrupt most likely whatever task it is that you're doing. If you're somebody who can get back on track very easily, great, use a timer. I also like using the actual task as a measurement. So if I know this is going to take me 35, 43, something like that minutes, maybe, great, I'm going to get up and do something as soon as I'm done.
Yes.
So now you have a metric of time, and you know that, okay, great, I'm not going to be sitting too long. I know exactly when I need to get up. The next part is making sure you couple it with something that you're going to do once you get up. Because if you get up and you go, well, this was silly. Okay, I don't even know what I'm doing. Am I going to do a squat? I'm just sitting back down and working. This is ridiculous. And the only reason I say that is because I've lived that. I used to have a list that I would write down. I love exercises. That's just me. I had some exercises. I had some chores or some other tasks that required movement. Taking out the trash, sweeping, doing the dishes, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And when I got up, there's my list. Now it's mostly living in my head. Good. I can go and do that little thing. Yes. It can take you as long as 10, 15 minutes. It could take you 2 minutes, depending on what it is. But that's movement. And this is where we are coming back to the point of movement and exercise are not the same thing. Your body doesn't go, well, that wasn't a push-up, I'm not counting it. It's a movement. You moved. You went and picked up laundry. You carried something upstairs. Whatever it may be, you decluttered a certain portion of your office. It's all movement. As long as you're standing up to do them, great. That's wonderful. So that's that first piece of where breaking up your sitting, so you're not sitting for too long and getting up to those 2 hours sitting straight without ever getting up, and what kind of things you should put in there. Because if you just put in exercises, eventually you're going, I just feel like I'm exercising all the time and I'm not getting things done. Great. Put in your chores. You'll get more things done that way as well.
Absolutely. It helps you think.
It does. Yeah. You can process.
Yes. I've noticed that, getting up, when I'm doing a really serious project or whatever, or it's a very creative project, let me put it that way. I've heard a study where every 15 to 20 minutes, get away from it and then come back at it. And so I find myself, okay, well, maybe I'm going to refill my coffee or my water, or go put water in the pet's dishes, and, go around the house and do a few things. Then I come back. So, and it's such a clear, I thought it was going to break my, concentration, but it didn't. It actually has helped things. So I cut you off. I just wanted to say it, reaffirm it really does help.
No, and I'm going to actually piggyback off of that just a little bit, and also making sure that if you take those breaks and if you have time, if you can go and you can look at a distance or just somewhere a little bit more out, because we're always focused up front. Books, phones, computers are always right in front of us. Yeah. That will also help you a little bit distress. That's a little bit more kind of neuroscience-y and what your eyes are doing than specifically physical movement. But that also helps with eye strain quite a bit.
Okay. That's very good to know.
Yeah, and those are great things. Those are wonderful things that we can implement. Unfortunately, if we do a break even every 30 minutes for a couple of minutes throughout the course of our day, we're adding maybe half an hour total of time, if that, of us not sitting.
Okay.
And that's just not cutting down on how much we need to be. That's not cutting down those 13, 14 hours of sitting that we might be doing.
Okay.
So the next piece, and this is the long-term piece, this one can really scale almost infinitely, is the sitting less piece. And it's finding a task that you can do. At first, just find a very simple, easy task, just one that you can do standing up or walking or moving. For me, it's phone calls. I can't sit when I am on the phone. I immediately start getting up and pacing. I think better. I'm more engaged with the conversation. That's mine. It could be Zoom calls. I now do all my Zoom calls standing up. I proudly say that I only sat for 2 Zoom calls last year. But one was because of an injury. Another one was because I just ran a very long distance and I was exhausted to be on my legs. And it may think, oh, I'm tired, I don't want to. You actually, when you stand up, you get more of the energy. But the point is, you find these small tasks. And in this case, I've evolved it to where now it's an hour. Now it's 2 hours that I'm doing it. But you find a small task that may take you 5, 10, 15 minutes and do it not sitting. Maybe you take your laptop over to the counter and you answer a couple emails there, and then you come right back to your normal station and sit down there. Maybe you tell your team, hey, we're going to have this meeting. It's going to be 15 minutes, but only standing room only, kind of a meeting. So you can find those ways, and then you expand and you add more and more and more. The goal is not that you never sit. So that's why even I have a book. It's not called Never Sit or Sit Never. It's called Sit Less, because the point is that we need to reduce it. I'm very realistic about it. And certain things you won't be able to. Certain things you have to sit down to do. Perfectly fine. Just don't make it all the things that you're doing are sitting down. Yes. So those are the 2 big takeaways: is cutting up the intervals so that we're making sure we're getting the movement in, and then transitioning some of those tasks. Because the beauty of it is that when you do that task, you interrupted your sitting, and now you've reduced the sitting dramatically.
Amazing. For some of us have returned back to our office spaces, at least some time and some full time. What about, having these like standing, like where you can put something on your desk and have your keyboard, so you can have a standing desk, basically, like your keyboard and monitor raised so that you're not hunched over this and you're able to stand up. What about those? What do you think about those kind of workstations?
They're awesome. However, they are not, how do I put it? They're not the solution. They are the tool to the solution. And let me explain why.
Okay.
I have had way too many people that say, I'm going to get a standing desk. It's going to make everything better. They get the standing desk and they never use it.
Oh.
So it doesn't do you any good to get a standing desk that you're not going to use. You need to have the habit of actually getting up and using it to some degree. Now, I will say maybe they improve their standing. Maybe they add a half an hour of standing there. But me personally, I don't have a standing desk. I do my Zoom calls by putting my monitor on a pile of books. Don't tell my teachers, but it's some of their books from grad school. But still, they're near me. They're always near my desk. What do they want? They're happy. The closest books I keep. But I have these various other ways. You don't have to spend a lot of money and buy a $500 or dollar desk. Sometimes they have those little risers that you can put on top of your desk that also, they're all great, but they're all tools. So if you are in the habit of actually standing up and using them, they are fantastic because they really help you with the posture. But if you're not in the habit of it, they're not going to give you the habit all of a sudden out of nowhere.
I can attest to that because I bought a riser. I'm telling on myself, about 3 years ago, when I came to work from home and I was working for my last corporate job, bought that riser. It's still in the box. It has never been removed. And I paid like $200 or something for it on Amazon. I was like, I'm going to do this so that I can stand up and I had all the great intentions in the world, and I never taken it. Now, as soon as we're done, I'm going to go upstairs. I'm going to get that out, and I am going to put it on my workstation that's in the other room, not in my recording area. And I'm going to use the tool. actually, to create the habit. So you have now motivated me to go and create the habit.
Fantastic. And that's so another one that people always end up asking, they're like, what about those treadmill desks? Aren't those great?
Oh, God.
So a couple of things about them. Standing desks have been shown to improve productivity. So standing versus sitting, we're definitely better on our computers when we stand, when we appropriately. If you just stand up and work and hunched over, you're probably not going to be productive. Actually, when you're set up properly for it to some degree. Treadmill desks show an improvement in productivity over time. Initially, and they did this study with actual typists, so it was literally how fast can you go on a keyboard. Initially, when they started walking and doing it, their productivity went way down because they had to really adjust to, okay, my legs are moving, my hands are moving, what's happening?
Right.
And then over time, they got better. It took several hours of actually trying and being on the treadmill and doing it. So for us, it may take a week or two, but you do eventually get better. It's once again about building the habit. I don't think you should get a treadmill desk unless you have the habit. You're already doing the standing up. You love going on the walks, and it's just something you're just passionate about and you can't wait to get on the treadmill. Then get it, but it's not a necessity.
You know what the other thing that they had I've seen before are the little pedal things like you can put under your desk, and you can be sitting and pedaling, but I feel like that's still sitting. So I don't know. What's your take on that? I'm not sure what to do with that one.
Sure. Better than just sitting and not moving at all.
Yeah.
Not as good as standing up and walking by any means.
Yeah.
It's the similar thing with the treadmill of where initially your productivity is going to go down because you're not used to doing the task at the same time.
Yeah.
But again, it's a tool. If you use it, it's going to be better than you not using it.
Yeah.
And not having it.
Yeah.
But that's not really going to resolve it because you're still sitting on your behind, and there's plenty of fun things there, which I feel like I should mention this. We were talking about some of us have more fluff than others.
Yes.
And there is some research to how we should approach standing in that regard. Fine motor skills, which basically means like small movements of the hand, like if we're using the mouse or for writing, things like that, actually decrease when overweight and obese individuals stand up as compared to seated. What that means is, it doesn't mean, okay, it's not for you. No. It just means that you have to be a little bit more patient with yourself. And maybe instead of standing up for 30, 40 minutes or an hour, you do 10, 15. That's where you start. Be understanding of where you need to be. It is so individualized, and then go from there. The other caveat is that if you're feeling pain, like if you're getting just achy legs, your low back hurts and is pinching, you're probably standing too much. If that's what standing is doing. I know we all want to say, oh, I'm going to stand for 2 hours today. I'm definitely going to do it. You've been sitting for 13, 14 hours for years. You can't change that and all of a sudden have your body be used to it in a day or a week. It takes time. That's why I said changing the tasks is very much a long game. It's going to take a while, but you will get there. Just start small.
That's awesome. That's very good to remember. As with anything, like, don't just jump out there and go to the gym and think you're going to exercise for 2 hours straight, because your body will reject it. Okay. If you're not used to that, your body will reject it. Be like, what are you doing? We're not playing this stupid game with you. And we're revolting. So build into it. I mean, the old adage, Rome wasn't built in a day, is also true for your health, the status of your body and your health. You didn't just get here overnight. It's not going to change overnight. It's okay. Go at your pace. That is so awesome. Tell us tell us more about this, about Love to Move. Like, do you work with groups? Do you work in, how does one like learn to love to move with you?
Sure. Yeah, no, it's a good question. The answer to all of those is yes. Right. Nice and easy. But I know that I need to start with working with some individuals. Some people, that's just going to be the way that we're going to progress. A lot of that is addressed in the book, and then I have a course out where it's kind of for individuals. And I've kind of pushed that because, again, it's not that I love people. I love talking to people and interacting with them, but it's going back to me being as a physical therapist. The one-on-one things are not going to have the true big shift impact I want to have on the culture of desk work. So then we go to me working with more so on groups. And with groups, I really prefer working with teams, and especially if they're less than 25 people, ideally. But in a bigger company, you can always truncate it down to smaller groups. The reason is you can actually have an impact and talk to the team and say, how are you guys going to support each other on learning how each person prefers to move? What are the things you like to do? Not everybody wants to play, ultimate frisbee or run a 5K. What are the ways that you like it? How are you going to support each other? It's going to be different for different people. So if I do presentations for larger audiences, but if I talk to 300 people, maybe a few of them will do it, but it's not really going to have the impact. And my whole deal is to try to have as much of that impact as I can.
Yes.
So it's then going in and talking to the higher ups, the middle managers or the C-suite about what can we do to help facilitate versus encourage. And the quick scoop on that is many companies encourage movement. Encouragement sounds something like this. We at company XYZ know that movement is very good for you, so we encourage you to take frequent movement breaks. Wonderful, it's good, but I think we can go a step further with facilitating. Facilitating sounds like this. We at company XYZ know that movement is good for you. We have scheduled 3 5-minute breaks in your morning and in your afternoon. You've given people the permission, and so now they can kind of do it. And it's finding what are those ways that we can do it. Right. I still do one-on-one work with individuals where we can customize and talk about things. If people go, I'm at home, I've got 6 monitors. Actually, I have a gentleman who's got 6 monitors. I don't know.
I believe it.
How do I make sure that I'm sitting, I'm standing? What do I do?
Yep.
It's very individualized. And with people working at home, I have to do it virtually. I'm not going to walk into the office and necessarily help them there. And I know that we're moving more and more towards most jobs are going to be hybrid or remote. Right. And so we have to teach people and give them the tools and help them create the habits to make sure they take care of their own environment. So that's absolutely the quick gist of it.
Absolutely. So for all of you that are watching or listening to this podcast, if you're in a position to reach out to Stefan, we're going to be sure his contact information is in the descriptions and the show notes everywhere. If you're in a position, right, reach out to Stefan and, hey, you know what? Let your boss see this podcast. Let your HR see the podcast, and let's get Stefan to work with your company. I think that's an amazing option. You mentioned you have a book as well, and you do have an online course. Can you give us the name of your book, and we'll try to get a link to that now in the show notes and everything as well.
Sure. The book is called Sit Less: Evolve Your Work and Life Without Compromising Your Health. It's got a beautiful purple cover, as that is my favorite color.
Awesome.
And then the course is just called a Love to Move Basics course. And it's on the website, ltmmtl.com, which is the first letters of Love to Move. The full original name, this is a scoop, not many people get this.
Okay.
The full name was actually Love to Move, Move to Love, to help address the concept of that we need to be more compassionate and caring and understanding. Yeah. However, that's a mouthful, so it's been shortened to Love to Move. But the website still keeps the memory of that.
Awesome. That is beautiful. And we're going to have all of that down in the notes. This has been amazing. I know I myself am just thinking, we should probably get a group of healers and creators and all of us together to be like kind of this conglomerate to kind of come and work with you. I think that's amazing. And I want everyone to, run, don't walk, don't sit, and go over to Stefan's website. Again, all the links are going to be in the notes below. and or in the descriptions wherever we're watching this. And I so very much appreciate, like, literally as soon as I hit like where I'm gonna go set this all up. Stefan, do you have any parting words for the group, for the community that you'd like to share with us?
I do. One is because I love our conversations. And even the first time that you and I talked, I love the energy of this community and everything. So part of it is, guys, if you get the book, you're going to have my email down there. Send me an email with the name of the podcast, which I hope you know you're listening to it and are watching it. Art of Inspiration, right? Send me that. And I'll do a one-on-one consulting session with you completely free so that we can talk. It'll be a 30-minute. I'm not going to sell to you. I swear. I'm just there to help make sure you get the best out of the book and that you're really doing the best for your body. Because I'm not in this for any other reason than to help people out. That's the reality of it. And my parting words really comes down to the title of the book, which I'll go into just very, very briefly.
Yeah.
I called the book Sit Less. I didn't call it Move More. We have this concept in our heads that we need to do more. And I feel like we're really burning out on this concept of doing more and more of this stuff.
Yeah.
I call that Sit Less because we need to look and see what are the bad things we might be doing in our lives. And how can we take away some of those detrimental things to help enrich our lives? Amazing. That's a lot easier than just constantly burning out and piling more onto the things that we're thinking, oh my goodness, I absolutely have to do. So if you take away anything, please just sit less.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you so much. And just so you guys heard that, when you go and purchase Stefan's book, we have the link down there. When you go purchase his book, send him an email, and in the title, right, put, I saw you on the Sunday Soul podcast. And you guys then will get to connect, right? And he will be happy to talk with you, stand with you for 30 minutes so that you can get the maximum benefits from his book. Thank you, Stefan, so much. I so appreciate everything. And I definitely got a lot out of this to take away to implement in not only my own personal work day, but that of my team as well. Thank you so much.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me. Like I said, I love the energy here. So it's just a pleasure.
Oh, we appreciate you. We appreciate you. All right, guys, we're going to sign off here. And as always, peace, love, blessings, and joy be unto you today, tomorrow, and for all eternity. I love you guys so much. Namaste. Bye, gang.